But the cool thing about that repetition and that practice is once you continue to intensify it and put your time towards it, neuroplasticity kind of becomes this process where a single event or even windows of opportunity help you to create transference, meaning you're getting good at something. And so now practicing that skill allows you to be better at something else. And that transference, I think, is wonderful because it means that when you're learning something, when you're doing, these new practices or learning these new skills, if you're intentional with it, you can change yourself in other ways than you didn't even think were possible.
Peace, my people. Welcome to I Must Be BUGN, where we have honest, relatable conversations packed with powerful insights that spark curiosity and help melanated, gifted, and neurodivergent folks feel seen, safe, and celebrated. Here, labels don't have to feel like pathology, and complexity feels comfortable. Welcome to the latest episode of I Must Be BUGN. This is your host, Sheldon Gay. As always, I am so excited for you all to be here. I've got a returning guest, like one of my absolute favorite people to talk to. We'll get into that in a couple of seconds. But yeah, as we always do, let's start again with a visual description for those that might be helpful for. So again, my name is Sheldon Gay. I go by pronouns he and him. Today I have on my black over-ear headphones. I have on my black hoodie of my design, which says labels don't have to feel like pathology. I have black curly hair that is faded on the side and the back. I am a black man in my 40s with light brown skin. I have a mustache, a little tuft of hair on my chin I always call a goatee. Behind me are a series of items on the wall that, whether it be personal items or some of my favorite books. Today, I will point out Black Boy Smile is one of my, Black Boy Smile is one of my favorites as well. And there's also a pillow behind me which also says labels don't have to feel like pathology. And with that, let me tell you about our guest, David Hester, who is an irrational human learning to be rational. He joined LifeGuides as an executive because their missions to positively impact 1 billion people in the next 15 years matched his. And he's just a dude. And I love this bio. Always. It's just a perfect encapsulation of who Dave is. And so, Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it. Glad to be back. I'm glad that I wasn't ran off and, told to not come back. So it's an honor.
Not at all. So go ahead.
I was about to jump into my description because
yes,
I thought about it. I was like, how am I going to describe myself? So I'll start from the top. I am wearing a knit cap. Kind of if you imagine a Rastafari Ja. If you imagine that, got a knit cap and what could be considered a perfectly coiffed connection of locks in front of my prefrontal cortex. It's really wild, but it was an accident. I am a kind of a chocolate covered black man with a medium-sized beard. I say medium because ZZ Top is large. I'm not there yet. If you don't know who ZZ Top is, just search it. It's fun. I have sprinkles of gray in my beard, which my daughter says makes me unapproachable because it seems like I have all the wisdom, which I don't. I'm just learning. I'm rocking a slime colored, you know what I mean? Like slime because it is lime. It's kind of green, colored sweatshirt with Rick and Morty, kind of leather jacket knitted on the side, and a pin of Rick sitting on the toilet. I am also I'm in a room. Shout out to the Union. That's the place where I'm recording right now. And behind me is some wonderful art of what looks like not Led Zeppelin. What's that rock group? The Rolling Stones. It looks like the Rolling Stones lips thing there. All right, that's the most I've ever spent just talking about how I look in the moment, and that feels odd, but I'm gonna accept it. Okay.
Yeah. No, man, just in your description I hope that folks who haven't had the opportunity to go listen to our first discussion, which again, if you haven't listened to that, I promise you, go back, check it out. Absolutely fun discussion. But again, this just walking through this with you just reminds me again of why I love, having conversations with you and tapping into your work. So yeah, let's kind of like just jump into it a little bit.
Okay.
Again, you do a lot of great work. I know I was just kind of checking in, again, kind of like on your profile and really fascinated. And I'll tell you a little bit more why later. But tell me about your work at Neuroplasticity and why you think that applied neuroplasticity is so important.
Oh, that's easy. That's a layup. So my my reason behind it is because that term, you can't teach old dog new tricks, which a lot of
Hmm.
people like, they ascribe that to their being. They're like, I can't, I don't learn anything, but that's
Hmm.
cap. Or
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
put it in local terms, that's a lie.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um I joined this group because they're focused on not only bringing neuroplasticity as a uh, intentional part of building businesses, but then
Hmm.
also coaching individuals, and you're just creating opportunities for us to learn more about ourselves. And the research behind neuroplasticity continues to grow because it shows that, one, we're an adaptable species, and we
Hmm.
learn by doing.
Hmm.
And when it comes to neuroplasticity, the fun thing that people need to realize is that you don't learn by watching YouTube videos on how to learn. You don't,
Hmm.
or if you're watching those YouTube videos on why you are um, procrastinating or why you're lazy, that's not learning. You're just taking in content. Where
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
learn is where you start to apply those things. So if you
Hmm.
apply one of those elements, and it's hard at first, it's difficult. And the reason why it's difficult, Dr. Tracy Marks, who I love and adore, my wife knows that, so it's okay, I could say that. Um, she Dr. Tracy Marks does these online videos, and she talks about neuroplasticity, and her description of the neural pathways is wonderful. She talks about, if you're walking in the woods and you just keep walking the same path, over
Hmm.
time that path is going to get worn. It's going to be easier for you to traverse it because you've knocked out all the obstacles.
Hmm.
You're basically be able to walk that path without even being consciously aware of what you're actually doing.
Hmm.
Now, she said, now of course, when you try to walk a different path, it's difficult. There's thickets of grass and bamboo or whatever, and it may
Hmm.
obstruct your you know your process. But at the same time, as you keep going through those difficult challenges, it gets lower and easier to walk.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
you keep walking that, you burn basically in the circuitry of your brain whatever it is you're doing. So that's why when they say practice makes perfect, what they really means is practice gets you better if you
Hmm.
practice well. Because you can
Hmm.
practice I said a layup earlier. You can practice your jump shot and miss
Hmm.
50 of them because your process or your system works, or
Yeah.
is faulty.
Hmm.
Then, okay, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to change your system, or are you just going to keep shooting bricks?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
neuroplasticity for me is, it's the untapped resource for us to be able to change as humans, because
Hmm.
we are facing a rapid, uh, untenable situation when it comes to tech, when it comes to how we're treating each other, when it comes
Hmm.
to trust, when it comes to just our perceptions of other. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people being put in other, and we need to embrace neuroplasticity, because what that also does is it allows room for growth. Meaning, you don't have to be this dog that can't learn a new trick. You can
Hmm.
do more. You can change.
Hmm.
And so when I joined with JJ Kennedy is the leader of the MPN group, and we have the same mission. We're just trying to reach as many people as possible, help them go from functional to flourishing. Building in better systems. That's
Hmm.
really my whole thing with my organization, MusingU, is we are how do we build in better systems within the workplace, and how do
Hmm.
you build equitable access to emerging tech.
Hmm.
I can go on and on about tech, but basically, yeah, neuroplasticity is our ability to stretch because the brain is plastic. So stretch it to where you need it to go. And now I got disclaimer.
Go ahead.
Just because I said that neuroplasticity, or we all can do it. If you are 5'7" and you're like, I'm going to use neuroplasticity so I can play in the NBA, that's just not physically possible. So my disclaimer is within context. You can do anything, and you can learn and grow to any point within context.
Yeah. A well worth, disclaimer. I think. So let me tell you why. One of the reasons why I'm super curious about this. One, first of all, it's just fascinating. Period. Right? Because as you said, there is this line that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and that's sort of like ingrained into everyone's kind of belief system. But there again is increasing studies that show that that's not 100% true. Like there are ways, and the brain is actually built to be able to like you said, like carve out a new path. Obviously it's harder the deeper and more when your dirt path has become this paved road, it obviously is a lot harder to turn that into something different. But the fact of the matter is that it's still possible, right? And to that end, one of the things that I've been saying is like community manifested for me is a PhD, which I probably even said this to you before when we first talked. Like I was like, man, I ain't going back to school. I got my master's. Like I've done it. Like y'all can have school, y'all can enjoy that. But in the last couple of months, more than a few people have been like, have you thought about doing a PhD? And I'm like, okay, the universe has tried to tell me something. And to that end, like neuroscience, particularly like leveraging applied like neuroscience as it relates to stories around melanated and marginalized neurodivergent communities is something that I've been thinking about. I mean, that's sort of at the heart of this work, right? This podcast is about humanizing gifted and otherwise neurodivergent experiences, and a big part of that is understanding, hey, like even how we think about ourselves can change. And that idea, like when you start to see yourself from a different angle, all of a sudden these narratives and these ways that you thought that the world could only be can completely be shifted. And so I know there's actually someone that I know that's even been studying specifically neuroplasticity in gifted and otherwise neurodivergent minds, and like how that is different. And so again, all this work is super fascinating to me. And even again, as you're talking about being able to leverage it for organizational spaces, whether that be a corporation or otherwise, right? But like, how do we use this to help organizations not stagnate, is maybe a way of saying it, right? So yeah, I didn't know if you had anything else that you wanted to share about that. I mean,
one last thing about neuroplasticity that's fun is the transference, meaning if you are specific in what you're trying to learn, let's just say it's a new skill you're trying to learn. You do the repetition. That was the practice I'm talking about. We're talking about practice, not the game. We're talking about practice. Which also, side note, that whole thing was blown out of proportion, even though he was talking about him dealing with the loss of his friend. But anyway, I encourage you guys to look that up. Yeah. Side note. Yes. But the cool thing about that repetition and that practice is once you continue to intensify it and put your time towards it, neuroplasticity kind of becomes this process where a single event or even windows of opportunity help you to create transference, meaning you're getting good at something. And so now practicing that skill allows you to be better at something else. And that transference, I think, is wonderful because it means that when you're learning something, when you're doing, these new practices or learning these new skills, if you're intentional with it, you can change yourself in other ways than you didn't even think were possible.
Yeah, I mean, let's just stay there a little bit, because I think, this is like super fascinating, but a really amazing point, right? Because I think when we think about growth, a lot of times people think it's just a sort of super linear thing, right? Like, okay, I
Yep.
wanted to get from A to B and that's kind of it. But
Hmm.
as you get on that path, and even when you get to B, you may realize that, one, B looks different than what you, envisioned. But two,
Hmm.
that along that path, the things that it took to get there now allows you to get to, not even just C, but to 3 or
Yeah.
to whatever, some other like dimension that wasn't even considered right within that pathway. And but you have to kind of like, again, you have to get on the path. You have to start that journey for those things to emerge, because before that, it can be really hard to even see how um, again, walking in that direction might lead
Hmm.
you, into that otherwise portal or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was about to say that, and I like that you use the term portal because we're kind of doing it every day. Every
Mhm,
day when you get up, you're kind of portaling into sometimes different circumstances. And
mhm,
the thing about one thing I want to make sure people understand about neuroplasticity is that it's basically our brain's ability to change and adapt
mhm,
to new, creating new connections, definitely, but to change and adapt. And what you're talking about, like that portal, that is
mhm,
that adaptation or change. We
mhm,
are pattern recognition systems. That's all we
mhm,
do is pattern recognition. We use heuristics and schema and different type of things to try to
mhm,
categorize people.
mhm,
But
mhm,
once we kind
mhm,
of elevate beyond that and realize that
mhm,
we're more, meaning like, oh, I'm not just the things that I described myself as earlier, as a
mhm,
black man, locks, all that stuff. Those are
mhm.
my attributes. That's not who
Yeah,
I am.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I am more, and then
Mhm,
meaning like I have we're all just beings of light. All right, there we go.
mhm.
We tapped into the woo woo part of this
Yes,
conversation, but
yes. Let's go.
when I say we're all we're all beings of light, I mean we're all governed by certain impulses. Most of them electrical, you know,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm,
we have this opportunity to rewrite and rewire our pathways, but we
mhm,
also have the opportunity to rewire our systems.
mhm,
And
mhm,
when I say systems, I mean just because we're learning more about the gifted population.
mhm, mhm.
And all right, let me ask you a question because this
Go
just popped
ahead.
in my head, but I've been thinking about it for a while. Do
Yeah.
you think that the gifted population, or the people who are neurodivergent,
Mhm.
do you believe that there is some higher purpose that we're maybe not aware of right now, but in the future it will come to be known that the people who had that gift allowed them to be in the world better? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. I love this question. I love how we even got here. Let me first say that, yeah, like I'm always talking. Some people probably get tired of me always being like, I see your light, like, and so I'm 100% there with you. To answer your question, the way that I would phrase it is that I think that we'll come back around to realizing the benefits, that I think a lot of the ways in which we are framing things now are directed by the systems of oppression, like particularly like capitalism. So everything's kind of like, can you do a job? Can you, produce whatever widget? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but in real life, like actual real life, right? Like my way of being, my essence is not. It doesn't matter whether or not I can do, this widget, but I may
Right.
have access to other perspectives of reality that do enhance, my existence here, right? And so, like, one of my recent guests, for example, she was talking about how she identifies with a lot of different neurotypes, but bottom line being, and she was like, I wish people could experience what it's like, what it feels like for me to eat food, right? She's like, all the
Mm-hmm.
different, like the flavors, like the textures, like everything is just so much. It's at a at a much more complex and deep level,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not something that everyone has access to. And so for me, I think, yeah, in the future, what we'll realize that I think, again, in years past, before like all these systems kind of concretized, like I think back in the day, a lot of us would have been the shamans and the, you know what I mean? Like the people with otherwise knowings of the world. Now that things have shifted away from that, we're going to get back to that eventually, is sort of the way of saying it, right? Like I think in the future, yes, we'll look back and be like, you know what? We stigmatized that, but actually that was, you know, pretty cool opportunity to walk through life. So yeah, that's my, you know, loop-de-loop of a response.
I agree with your response.
Yeah.
And I even take it a step further, and I hope I'm right. I think the future will be heavily supported by people who are neurodivergent, because that will basically become our superpower when it comes to how our systems will be 50 years in the future. And just like you said about being tasting textures and, you know, tasting different flavors, and also having those flavors affect you in a different way. Like I think about Pharrell. Pharrell has, I think it's called synesthesia.
Yeah, synesthesia. Yep.
And so he experiences these, you know, this music, you know, in colors and different ways. I think things like that, those superpowers are going to be more prevalent in the future when it's going to fit our systems in a better way. I hope so.
I hope so too. I think, again, any way that's allowing for the broad ways of being to, again, not be stigmatized, not feel broken, for us to, you know, so like one of my terms that I use is uniquely brilliant. And I define unique brilliant, you know, being uniquely brilliant as when lived experience and brain wiring combine to create opportunities for wonder. And for me, that's it. It's like, we don't need to judge any of this stuff. It's like, this is an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity to see the world differently. There's an opportunity to you know, just do all these things differently, no matter who is in front of us. But if we can easily miss that if we're stuck, like you said, in these schema that oftentimes are just, you know, marketing, you know, the remnants of marketing from, you know, past generations. And it's like, you know, the thing that just popped in my mind, for example, is and I mean, this is, we knew that this was going to happen, right? This is like this conversation goes with us. But like, what pops in my mind as I was saying that is, you know, things like marriage. Like people have, and even, let's just talk about like in the US and westernized worlds, like people have a very defined way of thinking about marriage, and what's good and what's bad and what's right and all those other kind of stuff. But it's like, you know, even like buying wedding rings, you know, diamonds. Oh, it's got to be a diamond. But like, who said that, right? Like, who defined that?
De Beers.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say, right? People don't realize that, again, this was marketing. This was just capitalism determining what was going to be, and now people don't even question it. They're just like, oh yeah, gotta get the super sparkly ring. And it's like, but wait a second, does that, if the ring is supposed to represent this connection, have we invested more of our resources into the ring than into the actual connection? Because if so, then that defeats the
oh, you get into something else, man, which is for me, I joked with my my daughter. She has a friend who's young, about to get married, spending a lot of money on their wedding. And I asked her, I said, are you open to running a pool to see how long their marriage will last? Which is a terrible thing to do. I want to acknowledge that. It's a terrible thing to do. But the reason why I said it was because when the attention is put on these objects and maybe even these ceremonies, you know, and not the attention on each other or building the foundation so that they can continue to be married for years to come, we're kind of missing the mark. And I agree with you. I think late stage capitalism and adverts have kind of fueled how we see things, and we need to challenge that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, but again, this is exactly why, like I said, I love, you know, having conversations with you. And let me pick one of these questions next that we, you know, had planned. Actually, here's another like a good one that I want to kind of get into, because I think it goes into bumping up against preconceptions. And so I'd seen that recently you were part of a panel at a summit about midwifery, and kind of tongue in cheek, I asked, what can a Black man offer in this space, right? Like that's kind of my question. Go ahead.
Wow, good question. Good question. And shout out to I think it's called bloomconsulting.org. I might have their name wrong. But they're just doing great work where they're trying to midwife change. And so to answer your question of what a Black man has to offer, for me it's a lot, because I don't see a lot of representation. I don't see me in these spaces a lot. I'm sometimes the only one. And people out there, it's getting lonely. Like, if you have these thoughts, if you are a scientist, if you're a change maker, get yourself out there, tell your story. Your story is important. And I believe it's important because we have a very US based lens here in the States, and not a global lens.
Yeah.
And globally, between my Indian brothers, between my brothers all through the African diaspora, the brown people, there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
And we don't see the representation in Western culture. And we also don't see the representation when it comes to the changes that Western culture puts into the world that are thereby then going to affect everybody. And so my offering there was, I went through a little bit of my mission statement with MusingU, which is, what are we doing to make sure that we are creating paths for equitable access to emerging tech? And here's what I mean by that. Organizations, especially if they're doing well, they have plans. They release an ESG, which is for the uninitiated, it's a bunch of boardroom jargon. And side note, I also try to leave all that jargon and stuff out, because I feel like it's gatekeeping. If I start talking in all this corpo language, then the people who are on the outside are like, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm gonna take it as disrespect. So I'm just not.
Right.
So I'm not even gonna listen to what
you chin checking me over here with these words.
All right. Yeah. What are you doing over here? Come on. So basically, I was like, listen, these organizations, they are concerned, of course, about what are they doing socially? What are they doing environmentally? How are they being governed? And I said, what I'm not hearing in there is, one, brain capital, talking about neuroplasticity, two, longevity, and then, of course, third, equitable access. Because people listening right now, whether you're neurodivergent or not, there's so much new tech out, whether it be exoskeletons that can help you walk. We have gene editing that's going to completely change the landscape of what it means to be human in the coming years. We have and that's not even mentioning the hot button topic, which is AI. So how is AI being created, but then also marketed and given? And I know that sounds really silly in corporate terms. You don't give anybody anything, but think about the effects of giving a low income community access to 3D printing tech, so that they can learn CAD and learn different systems, so that they're able to go out into the workforce and work at Research Triangle Park, for example, in North Carolina. That reverberates through time, meaning generations start to learn more when we create access. But instead, what we're seeing is the people who have the most money, who have the most connections, and who are aware have access. And I'll be honest, I'm privileged because I've been in those groups. I've been open access to brand new, for example, like I always talk about all the time, but the Aura Ring. I was a part of the groups that I've connected with, including Trans Tech Lab and Palo Alto Neuroscience. It was just getting access to this was like, wait, we can track our sleep. We can track this. And I was like, wow, how amazing would it be if there's pathways for this to be available to somebody who doesn't have the access I have, who doesn't have the connections I have. So when it comes to being a Black man and kind of representing in that space, I'm representing, I hope, what can and will be, which is a diverse group of individuals from different perspectives, walks of life, working together to bring positive change to the world. That's grandiose statement of saying if we work together, we're collaborative, we do better together. And there's not enough of us. There's not, and when I say us, I mean Black men in these spaces. And I mean women too, but I'm gonna give the women a little bit more of a thumbs up. They are kicking ass in the leadership positions right now. And they also need to be protected because they're kicking ass, they might overheat or push themselves too hard and burn out. And at the same time, we just don't see enough of us. So I'm gonna hop off this soapbox.
Oh, listen. No, I mean, you touched on so many different things that, again, are amazing. I mean, equitable tech is certainly, a passion of mine. Shout out to my living goat, Dr. Ruha Benjamin. I've read too many, well, I wouldn't say too many, but like several of her books, right? And but again, just thinking about the implications of one, giving access. So, not putting this technology just in the hands of the quote unquote elites, right? But like, how do we make sure that everybody has access? But then as well, how are we thinking about its implications for those communities? Because what it was designed for probably doesn't account for the use cases and the needs, of those communities. So it's also not just kind of like taking this thing and kind of like dropping it in the community and saying, all right, like, here you go. It's, wait a second. Okay. How is this a different environment for this technology to exist? And I think, out of that as well, particularly if you can get some of those folks, into the development phase, you can also open up doors for, again, new ways of using the technology that again have both social and financial impact, if that's, like I said, the angle that you want to go down. But like, I think, yeah, it's really important to be thinking about that. And then just generally speaking, going back to the point of Black men in spaces where we're not often seen. Yeah, and that changes. Like I said, like if you go outside of the U.S., a lot of actually, there's a guy I know, I won't mention his name, but like there's a prominent uh, uh, Black man who's working in the space, who was just actually in Africa. I'm trying to remember which country he was in. But he's going back and doing work there, and a lot of that again is about this representation piece. But he's working in like maternal health spaces, and so that isn't necessarily a place where you would expect to see his face. But again, when you go back to some of these other countries, it's like, oh yeah, like pull up, like this is not such a foreign concept for us. So again, yeah, just making sure that we, even here in the US, is are doing that. I think as well, I love the part about the protection. I think there's two levels of protection in my mind, right? There's exactly the burnout for the women who are leading the charge, who are burdened with a lot of emotional labor, just a lot of, like, what I mean? Like, so protecting, like taking some of that burden, off of them, and being mindful of not having them carry like the fullest of the load all the time. But as well, I think that there are, and especially in this political climate, there are a lot of folks who are trying to, shut down and or like regress on the gains that have been made. And so how do we stand in, as a shield, or as, like whatever, just this sort of this way to help keep pushing the efforts forward, as opposed to again letting them regress. Yeah, I mean, again, this is all really an important work. And again, why I love engaging with a mind like yours, because not only are you simply in these varying spaces, but you get the the dynamics that exist between them, and the importance of bringing those elements to the forefront, right? And not just kind of like, oh yeah, I was in, you know, whatever Fortune 100 company's office, and like that's all, that's all there is to it. It's like, no, like there's, what I mean, like there's a lot more to it than that. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. I wanted to go back to the protection thing because I also don't want to get attacked by my beautiful black women's.
Okay, go ahead.
Uh, when when I say protection, I'm not
Mhm.
saying that women need to be protected, but what I
Mhm.
am acknowledging is that there are times where it is helpful for us to protect against harmful things,
Mhm.
specifically in the workplace.
Mhm.
Protect
Mhm.
if you have that coworker that you know is a terrible, terrible person when it comes to sensitivity and they treat people disgusting,
Mhm.
and you have a teammate who is assigned to work with them, but you have an
Mhm.
opportunity to say, hey, let me step in either as a buffer or either as some sort of way to make sure that that woman doesn't, you know, catch the brunt of that. That's
Mhm.
what I mean by
Mhm.
protection. And
Yeah,
some
yeah,
of
yeah.
it really is sometimes it's compassionate action. You know,
Mhm.
we need
Mhm.
more compassionate action and empathy. Uh, I mean, in the workplace, period.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, let's be absolutely clear, right? We're not saying this is not um like a dainty princess kind of a,
Yes,
model here. It's not that at all. Thank you for making sure that, neither one of us
Wha-
gets canceled, right? But
that's
like
right. That's right. And also, you know, I, I not only do I not want to be canceled, but I ain't trying to get cussed out by my moms. Like
Right,
my
right,
moms
right.
would be like, "I ain't never need no body protection. How dare you say that?" So
Right.
I ain't catching that right now. Nah.
100%. 100%. So I know that I mean, I am curious about. I want to get to this part about AI too, but I want to circle back,
Hmm.
or make sure that I give an opportunity, because I do really love the work that you do, like what LifeGuides is about. So I wanted to make sure that we took at least a couple seconds to talk, you know, maybe remind people a little bit about what LifeGuides is, but then, again, we haven't talked in, over a year. And so are there any milestones since then that you would think worthy of sharing with the folks?
Yes, I think we found. I'm going to be painfully transparent. I think
Go
we
ahead.
found a really good product market fit,
Hmm.
meaning that the market likes what we're producing as far as our work with SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management,
Mm,
um, and specifically around training their managers and their leaders, their people leaders, to be as efficient but also as empathetic as possible.
mm,
That this was a premise maybe like 3 years ago, and we worked within our teams. How do we create sustainable change
mhm,
for management systems? And so
mhm,
we married a point in time training, meaning like you just do it once and then you're done. A lot of people do that in business. They do this one
mhm.
point in time training and they think, oh, I learned something. Just
Right,
like I was
right.
talking about, like, looking at a video, you're not learning.
Mhm.
You're taking in information, but it's when you're doing. So we
Right, right, right.
paired that with LifeGuides peer-to-peer learning service, where they're connecting with other professionals who've been through exactly what they've been through or similar,
Mhm, mhm,
and they walk them through. So here's an example. We helped one organization deal with recent layoffs that led to um, a difficult work environment. And
mhm,
the
mhm,
manage the and when I say the managers, those are sometimes middle management, but also
mhm,
the executives and the leaders, specifically the people leaders, needed support on how to create safer language so that people
mhm,
would feel safe to actually communicate better.
mhm,
And it was so wonderful because the, out of this they created new processes, they created new language. For example, when I learned about how they talk about holidays, my mind was blown. It's not
mm,
just Merry Christmas and Thanksgiving.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
Indigenous Peoples Day. They're using
mm,
language about Yom Kippur,
mhm,
which different holiday. I get it. I know I'm bouncing around, but basically what I'm trying to say is they find the through lines and they understand that not everybody participates or celebrates the same. We
Yes.
are a melting pot of people here in the States, and I think we forget that a lot. We think
Yeah.
everything has to be Christian.
Right.
Maybe I won't say the other thing, but they need to be we need to be we need to be Christian. You know what? I'm gonna
Yeah.
describe because I'm
Yeah.
feeling a little saucy. I
Go
had my
ahead. Go
hand
ahead.
out
Yeah.
and I was kind of rubbing the inside of my palm. Moving on. So
Yeah.
we think that if it has to be that way, you know, it does. And so bringing it back to what we found worked at LifeGuides is pairing that training with long-term support, meaning you're
Mm.
talking about what's the challenge you're going through. Let's set some goals. Let's meet up next time. Talk through those goals. We've seen so many managers and really good data on improved job satisfaction, reduction of stress, which organizations need to understand. Reducing not only now you can't be stress free. That's dumb,
Right.
but you can eliminate unnecessary stress, which
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes starts to weigh on people and becomes a slow pressure cooker, and we're all boiled frogs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
way that we're seeing that organizations need to know there's benefit in training your leadership to be good leaders, not bosses. And
Yeah. Yeah.
shout out to Dame Dash because I wanted to be a boss,
Dame.
but I'm
Dame.
not.
There you go.
I love Dame, man.
Yo. Yo.
We all can't be
Slaying me
bosses.
right now.
You know what I'm
Killing
saying?
me over
But we can be good stewards of, you know, support for others.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing that in these organizations, these Fortune 500, these Fortune 100, all of them. They're using these arcane methods
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
ways of enforcing and leadership. And what they don't understand is the great organizations. And I'm saying, when I say great, I'm talking like, you know, you have Google, you have
Mm-hmm.
the Facebook. When they did like Project Atlas, and they
Mm.
you know search that up, really good papers and literature around Project Atlas, but just learning around how to build not only a psychologically safe environment, but a safe
Mm-hmm.
environment for creation and growth.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when they're able to do that, I can't remember the organization, but it's called Skunk Works. When
Mm.
they embedded this it's a tech process that they use. Again, go
Yeah.
look that up. But when they did that and they were able to basically just iterate and create on another level, that came because one, it was a system. Two, they felt safe enough that if they failed, that was a part of the process to learn,
Mm-hmm.
not a part of the process to be shamed or
Mm-hmm.
negatively kind of pushed on. So that's some of the good things we're seeing out of LifeGuides. And there's other organizations that I also champion, even though I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a part of them. But that's because I believe that there's enough stars in the sky for us all to shine. You know what I mean?
Ashe.
So,
Yeah.
so one of the organizations I love to shout out is Seven Cups. They provide access to, you know, whether if you need a quick therapist or you need a listener. They're different than LifeGuides model. Our model is peer to peer, and we're mainly in the peer professional mentorship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I love to shout people out like that because we all need as many resources as possible so that we're
Yeah.
not alone. And that's
Yeah.
what LifeGuides is, you know, I wish I knew now what I knew then, and imagine navigating a world where you're not alone, and we're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. No. Again, man, as always, super resonant energy between us. I love the part about there's enough stars in the sky for us all to shine. Like with this also reminds me of I don't know if I've had a chance to share this with you, but my favorite game shows are The Price is Right and
Let's go.
Let's Make a Deal. Yeah.
Mhm.
And a key reason why I love those is because they are, a unique brand of game show where everyone's technically competing against each other, but when you get on that stage, everybody's rooting for you. Everybody's trying to help you win, right?
Yes.
There's not this thing where it's like, oh, well, you know, again, there's not this sort of zero sum kind of a situation, right? And so I really, really love that energy. Excuse me. And I also want to just go back and talk about this piece of, you know, corporations realizing the benefit of investing into safe culture, safe environments, right? Like I think a lot of times people only are like, can you whatever do this calculation? Can you whatever churn out this report quickly? Like it's like cool, like all right, whatever. That is what it is. But if people don't feel safe, if people don't feel like I was having an absolutely fantastic conversation yesterday with a guy that I'm definitely bringing on to the podcast at some point, but he works for one of the major corporations helping the neurodivergent people within the company who, again, may very clearly have the, for simplicity's sake, the talent, but may be struggling. And so, helping them understand how to better navigate their role, but as well, like giving them tools. On top of that, saying, look, we could do all this work with this individual, but if they take this tool, if they take these lessons, whatever, and go back into the work environment, and the work environment's still like toxic, then it like all those gains, like they just go up in flames, right? And so working with managers and, like you said, people leaders, right, to say, again, here's this thing that, here are the things that you need to do to make sure that this environment is conducive to, excuse me, welcoming everybody and making sure that, whatever productivity can actually be enhanced for everybody. I was telling him about, the last time that I was in corporate, one of the challenges is that, and at the time I didn't know, like I didn't understand that my mind worked differently. I don't know how that might have changed. I probably would have been a little bit more brazen, to be honest. So that, I don't know that it would necessarily would have changed the outcome, but it certainly would have allowed me to the language to speak more clearly about what I noticed, which was that, again, I was like hitting and exceeding lots of numbers, but there was always this tension. And a lot of this tension was around like silly things that I'm like, does this really, like, do we really care about this thing? Or is this just kind of like,
come on, guys.
Yeah, right. Like, are we just performing around this thing, right? Like, I'm trying to think. He called it productivity performance, right? So there are a lot of things where, again, we're like, yeah, this is supposed to look like, this is real productivity, but at the end of the day, like, and I know when I left that company, I had clients, customers that I worked directly with who, would sing my praises, right? Like my numbers showed that, like my ratings from my clients were high and all that kind of stuff. So like if the folks who I'm interacting with and who are the paying, customer are really satisfied, then why are we talking about, for example, whether or not I push, yes to accept a meeting invite that I always show up for anyway? Like, why are we talking about this? And there's like many different other examples, right? It's like, okay, like let's actually, let's actually focus on the things that really matter. But yeah, I just think that there's a lot of work to be done around again, it's particularly on this podcast, right, to talk about it from a neurodivergent perspective, because if you have a mind that works differently, that has different needs, you trying to force it into a box often is the exact opposite way to kind of get what what you're looking for. So yeah, I don't know if you had anything else to say about that. I did want to, there's a couple of like key things I'm looking at time. I know how we can get. So like, that was the reason why the last time we spoke, I had to split it into two parts because we just had so much fun. But yeah, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to just tag on to the end of that.
Do better, organizations, and you'll do better.
There you go. Absolutely. So let's really, let's move on to talking about, like I said, this AI piece, because I think this is a really interesting piece, and you're certainly, this is a good space for us to be able to talk about this. So like, does AI have a future in neuroscience? And if so, what do you hope that it looks like?
Yeah, the future's already here with AI and neuroscience. Again, I can't think of the name of the company, but there's already been pairing AI with, and I'm going to get real sci-fi here.
Okay.
they're basically taking certain brain cells, stem
Mm-hmm.
cells, and growing an organic brain with a microchip. So think about a
Hmm.
neuron continuously growing, learning, getting better, but also being directly connected and um working with silicon, which is
Mm.
inorganic material.
Mm-hmm.
The Where they're going with this, I don't know. We're already seeing more. What are you thinking? Do you
No,
have an idea where we're
I
going?
mean, we can certainly get to some of the more dystopian movies that we've seen, right? We can definitely go there, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm with it. I'm with it there too. But I'm hoping that we're going to use it to improve um, medical outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
For example, AI has shown to be does fairly well at pattern recognition, a little bit better sometimes than humans, and it's
Mm-hmm.
faster. So it can be used, I believe, to help us understand more about. I call it our dark edges. Our dark
Mm-hmm.
edges are things like we don't understand why we dream. We don't. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's studies. There's a lot of research behind it. We don't understand exactly why we dream.
Mm-hmm.
We don't exactly understand, um, how prophetic dreams work. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
dreams
Mm-hmm.
something and it happens. But right now, they're already pairing AI with technology that can do anything from uh, kind of record your dreams. So that whole thing of people thinking that their dreams are safe or your thoughts are safe, that's cap. Soon your soon you will be dreaming of ads. Coors Light actually did this a couple years ago when they created an ad that was specifically created to be incepted as a dream. Like
Mm.
I'm not talking about like on YouTube. I mean like there's new technology that's going to allow for access to our minds in ways that we can't even comprehend right now. And I believe AI is going to be an accelerator, or you could even
Mm-hmm.
say like the gasoline that's going to
Mm-hmm.
make it move faster. So that means um, hopefully we'll use it to understand more about ourselves and not to control or exploit each other for capital gains or destruction of the environment. That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, I
And
was
it's
about to say.
you know that
Yeah.
that'd be nice. But I
Yeah.
do see that right now the challenge with AI is understanding what form of AI you're interacting with, because you have
Mm-hmm.
LLMs, you have
Mm-hmm.
machine learning,
Mm-hmm.
you have different levels of AI, and really what people aren't talking about a lot right now. Yes, we're on this really big sailboat that's got light speed heading towards AGI,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and generative AI, and I think we're also on this like fast track where everyone's trying to create the first AI super intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean,
I think
that's.
that the AI right now, especially in the neuroscience section, because the AI is going to be trained on so many models and learn so much about us in a you know in a short amount of time, I think that right now I'm gonna say this out loud.
Okay.
AI is like a human. Here's what I mean. The best thing for another human, and when I heard this, I thought this was wonderful. The best thing for another human's nervous system is another human.
Mm.
The worst thing for a human's nervous system is another human.
That's actually actual factual. Yes. Yes. Right.
So that's why when I say I see AI as being, I mean, we can call it right now, it's in superposition. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
which way it's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
but it could easily be the best thing that helps us grow as humans and our society and really take us to the stars as we want to go, or it could be the worst things for humans.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how that ends. We've seen the
Mm-hmm.
dystopian
Right.
uh, art, even though
Right.
I hope those are cautionary tales, but they're not, because and here's why they're not. There
Yeah.
are organizations right now called Cyberdyne.
Mm.
There are organizations that was created, as I mentioned earlier, exoskeletons.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about dream recording. That's
Mm-hmm.
reality right now. There's
Mm-hmm.
technology available to do that, and they're working on scaling it. We have uh, invasive neural implants with Neuralink,
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
and then we have not so invasive implants with like Synchron. And I know I'm calling out a bunch of organizations. Um, the reason why I'm calling them out is because I'm calling them up. They all have an opportunity to improve the well-being of everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean the people who meet the in the
Yeah.
circle of trust of those people who
Yeah.
created it.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's looking like it's created to help those people get ahead
Mm-hmm.
and others fall to the to the wayside.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. You reminded me, I've been seeing recently even more like studies about um how they are, yeah, pulling like language from dreams, right? And
Mm-hmm.
um and so it's like, okay, if they're able to, like, while you're sleeping, tell you whatever the words that you were thinking, then I mean, it's only a matter of time, right, before they're one reconstructing dreams. But then on the flip side, like you said, they want to put something. I mean, going back to this whole thing about, okay, if before the Marlboro ad was my way of
Yeah.
implanting things into you,
Right.
and that was like, that took, that took a little bit more effort. If I can just essentially, like, plug it directly into your brain and get that thing in there,
I'm
and this is, and like I said, I'm glad that you're calling these organizations up. Also, shout out to, my friend Dr. Damian Patrick Williams, who folks have heard me talk about before. Again, black man, we went to elementary school together, but is one of the foremost experts on ethical tech and ethical AI. But he's always talking about these kinds of scenarios, and
mm-hmm.
I always, I mean, honestly, a lot of times I feel bad because I'm like, he's been talking about and warning and speaking to how we can better address these things for the longest. And then he sees companies, he like jokes, sometimes, because it's like the exact thing. He'd be like, don't do this. He's like, all of a sudden this company's like, oh, you know what we should do? Like, let's actually do that exact thing. And you're like, wait a second, no. Like, maybe you missed the, like, do not do this part, but like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, I mean, I think this is, again, why it's so critical, one, to also make this type of information more accessible to larger groups of people, because they can start to question it. I'll tell you, for me, one of my, like, one of the things that gets my goose right now is how, like, nonchalant people use, like, AI image stuff. Like, they're like putting their images in there and just like resharing a whole lot of stuff that I'm like, you don't realize that, like,
You're perpetuating it.
exactly, you're perpetuating. And so today it's, oh, here's this cute picture of me as a baby, we're using AI, but in a few years that's going to be something, all of a sudden be like, wait, how did we get here? It's like, my friend, don't don't
And
don't you remember?
don't
You
you
know,
remember everybody using that? Like
yes,
it was a
exactly,
craze. Everybody was
exactly,
using it, you know, and
exactly.
I thought I was fine. One of those funny
Yes,
things, okay, I don't know if you've seen it,
but
but what's really not necessarily turned me off to AI, but made me really cautious about the information that I allowed to be accessed and consumed by
mm-hmm,
my brain.
mm-hmm.
My wife sent me a video of some bunnies bouncing on a trampoline. I don't
I
know
would
if you've
say, yeah.
seen it. So you see a couple bunnies bouncing on the trampoline, and it's so cute. They're just hopping around.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh man, they're getting it. That's cute, man. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's bunnies." And then I said, hold on, let me look at that video again. I looked at it again, and I noticed that one of the bunnies started to multiply into two or three bunnies. And I said, "Wait a second, that's not possible." That bunny
Mm-hmm.
turned into three bunnies. And so I went
Mm-hmm.
back to her. I said, "Babe, you know, you said this was from a Ring camera. So, it was presented to me as if this is someone's Rings camera catching
Right.
a bunch of bunnies having a party on a trampoline.
Right.
But
Right.
instead, what it was an AI video, and it really showed me, one, how, and don't take this wrong, people, how gullible we are as humans.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
easy to be manipulated,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you know better, you got to do better. And so now
Yes.
I'm curating my algorithm, but also I try to get off the algorithm as much as possible, because it kind of tells me what to think rather than I'm thinking and I'm consciously making the choice. But we can get into free will and Robert Sapolsky a little bit later. That's different. But when it comes to the AI and how much it's being used, it's going to erode trust. There's so many experts talking about we need to be aware that in the far-flung future of 2030, which is less than 4 years away.
Right, I was say right.
Yeah, in that far-flung year, people will not believe anything, because everything will be, through, used through these AI engines, and some of them are cool. I've seen, like a few cool things. You probably have too, but we have to make sure that we identify it, we label it. Like if it comes through your feed and it's AI, label it as AI.
Yeah.
So that you're not deceiving the people.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I've said this before, like I am a tech enthusiast. I love, I love it. Like that's definitely, my passion. And so I've seen it's this, this tough spot for me to be in, because I'm like, I want to play with the things. I want to kind of understand them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've definitely seen some cool stuff, but then, that's when the other side of it comes in, where it kicks in for me, where I'm like, oh wait, but like you said, in a few years, like we're getting fooled by, bunnies on a trampoline now, in a few years. And even today, one of the things that is happening today is people are recording other people's voices, and they're taking the scams to the next level, because what they'll do, before it was like, they were like sending emails or whatever to whatever the elderly and being like, your grandson is in danger. But now they've got the AI voice to mimic your grandson, and so to say, grandma, like this is happening already. And of course, again, all that stuff is only going to get better, more sophisticated, more automated, right? And so these are the things of the future where you're like, oh wow, like what is reality even going to be? How are we going to really, again, trust what we're seeing? Like before, back in the day, they were like, believe half of what you hear, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever the saying is, but like if you see
half of what you hear, half of what you hear, none of
believe,
what you see. No, probably
no,
half
none
of
of
what you
what you
see.
hear, half of what you see.
That's it.
Okay,
See?
there we
Yeah,
go.
it's
All
coming
right,
back.
we worked it out. So like,
we back.
but again, but now it's going to be like, no, don't believe none of that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
don't believe any of it, right? And that's and I'll say that, just to kind of like put a little bit of a bow on this, which is that for humans, one of the most distressing things is an inability to trust one's reality.
Oh yeah.
And so in that scenario, all these things that we're talking about, right? These things that kind of exist in the background of our existence, right? That are really impacting, again, how our light shines. That stuff just gets more, it gets cloudier, right? Because all of a sudden it's like, again, am I having a podcast with Dave, or is this, like that's what it becomes. And it's like, so anyway, yeah.
Man, I'm just taking a side because we're gonna have to survive the machine age.
Yeah. And so yeah, for those who I'll just say, for those who haven't seen, if you're living under a rock, or you were somehow otherwise occupied, just go watch The Matrix, and that's all I'm gonna say. And so having said that, let's take a little bit of a different term, because I do want to talk about this before we wrap up, as of the time of this recording, International Men's Day was not too long ago. And so
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, as I've said to folks on this podcast, particularly with this season, a big focus is on talking to, with, and for men. And again, how men being a man is defined. Like, let me not try to turn this into a binary. Again, for those who this may be the first episode that you've heard, like, there's no part of me that really wants to oversimplify that. However,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for, instead of having like 3-4 podcast episodes to even work through all of that, to simply just say, like I said, as men, as someone who identifies as a man, right, there are definitely things that I know that I want to be able to share with others who identify as men, right, and also speak up for some of the things that people just um don't really understand. I know there are a lot of us, for example, who are trying to um remove ourselves from what may be called patriarchy, or
Mm-hmm.
performative masculinity, all these different things. And so it's really important for that discussion to be had. So having said that, thank you for bearing with my preamble, as it were. But what do you think, what are the things that you wish that the world acknowledged about being a man, and then something that you hope changes about the future of masculinity?
I wish that the world will acknowledge that our our old systems of humanity aren't necessary anymore.
Mm,
And it's okay for us to change
mhm.
and, you know, be a little more demure, very demure. I don't know if you, but very demure. I love
Right.
that person, Scott. But that's actually a great example. Like, I can enjoy
Mhm,
that type of content that,
mhm,
you know, even almost slightly effeminate
mhm,
masculinity,
mhm, mhm,
because it, it, it it's a spectrum, it's a fluid,
mhm, mhm,
and it's not static. You know,
mhm,
we can change. So I really hope that people will understand that. And then what I really hope will change is that I hope that this crisis that mass men are currently
mhm,
in, specifically
mhm.
young boys in the year of our chipmunk 2025. Um,
Right.
I okay. Side note: I heard the chipmunk song on the way, and that's why it's in my head. Christmas chipmunks. It's
Yes,
fun.
yes, yes.
I hope you ADHD people are enjoying my nice traverses through weirdness. That's kind of how all of our minds works. But anyway,
Yes.
bringing back, I really hope that the people who are between the ages of like 16 and I'd say even 30 right now
Mm,
are in crisis. Men are in
mhm,
crisis.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I'm not pointing to, there's a lot of finger pointing. Oh, it's because
mhm,
of this. Oh, it's
mhm,
because we did that, or we let
mhm,
this go. And I think that's such does everybody a disservice to point fingers.
mhm,
But what I will do is say that I've learned the most about masculinity and acceptance from a children's TV show.
hmm,
And it shouldn't be that way, but I
mhm,
did.
mhm,
And when I learned about it, and I then learned about myself, allowed me to grow in my masculinity, but also sometimes, when needed, in my feminine energy,
mhm, 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 mhm,
and
mhm.
being able to go between those two. And the show I'm talking about it was created by Rebecca Sugar. It's called Steven Universe, and
Mm, mhm, mhm,
it it's such an affirming show.
mhm,
Affirming whatever walk of life, whatever difference you have, whatever experience or even trauma you've had, or how you present, whether that be
mhm,
masculine, feminine, or femme, whatever,
mhm,
and always coming from a place of love. and not
Mm-hmm.
on some frou. Oh, everybody's gonna love each other. No, you don't have to love each other, but
Right.
you can at least we're humankind, right? Be
Mm-hmm.
both. Be both.
Bars. Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt anybody. And yes, if your kindness is taken for a weakness, set up a boundary. Don't mess with that person anymore.
Yeah.
Done deal.
Right.
Doesn't mean you don't need to
Right.
be kind anymore.
Right.
So that's where I see. That's what I hope will change. Is that we will, the people who are in crisis right now will regulate, or somehow find their equilibrium and balance in a world
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't require the hyper masculinity, the disgustingness this really of masculinity that has
Yeah.
permeated our human experience for hundreds of thousands of years. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
from I'll just say 2,000 years, right? Because that's all we're tracking right now. But
Right.
humans have been here for much longer than 2,000 years. So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I again, I 100% agree, and I literally just this morning finished a book that many listeners will likely have heard of, which is Gender Trouble. And I'm trying to quickly, because I'm bad with author names, but hold on, I'm going to pull it up real quick. So make sure that I.
hey, that's okay. I'm
Yeah.
terrible with names. I know I said a lot
Yes.
today, but that was
Yeah.
an
Right.
accident.
I was saying right. So Gender Trouble by Judith Butler, right? So I just finished that audiobook, which is
Judith Butler.
I'm gonna have to like go through that again because it's super linguistically dense, I'll say. But again, there's this realization. The book, again, talks a lot about gender as a construct, right? And how, how we're telling people, whatever, through these quote unquote gender reveal parties, right? We're like, oh, I know exactly, but you don't know how this little baby is going to present in even 10 years, let
In the
alone,
world,
beyond that,
yeah.
right? And so, and the fact that we know that to be true, again, it's this thing where we can let go of like holding on so tight to these boxes, right? I was just in this
Yes.
Facebook group where I forget exactly what the post said, but somebody posted something that talked about the I won't remember exact words, but the core part was saying this, that a lot of men um their most intimate and again not necessarily talking about in a physical sense, right? Like, but like their most intimate relationships are with other men, but they'll never realize that because they, again, there's this thing where it's like, oh, intimacy is only between a man and a woman, and like that's the only way in which this word and
Right.
this kind of connection. But it's like, yo, like, I love you, bro, like, you know what I mean? And like the ways in which I share, I should have space to be able to share who I am with anybody who is in my community, and I shouldn't have to try to bend over backwards because it's like, oh well, I can only share this with you. Like, we can only talk about sports and whatever coming up with getting the bag. Like, that's the only thing we can have a conversation about, because everything else is for someone
Right.
else, right? And it's like, no, like that's not how it should be, and that's not how we can, going back to what you said, right? Like, to be fully human, right? Being humankind, the way for us to do that is by not putting bounds on what it means to be in our humanity. And I think that's where, for me, I would agree, right? Like, that there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that the future looks different as it relates to, again, keeping in these lanes that, again, we all know intellectually just don't work. But I brought up the Facebook group because what's funny is this, like, that's every time anything like that gets posted, it gets all these people in it. Says, they're like, making personal attacks, and it's like, well, like, again, ask yourself, do you have guy friends that, again, here's something that maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable sharing with, your partner, and if so, what, does that mean that That doesn't mean that it says nothing about your sexuality. It's just about, this bond that you've built with this other man, and that's okay. Like, that's cool, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it don't got to be anything more than that. We don't have to even get into any of those conversations, but just to acknowledge that that's possible, and that there's something special about having, again, that kind of bond. That's something to be acknowledged. And so, anyway, like I said, I'm 100% with you. Not sure if you wanted to add anything onto that,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I do real quick about
Yeah.
one thing that I've noticed recently is that I'm seeing more men's groups. And a lot of these men's groups that I'm coming in contact with are doing some really good work. They're bringing together men, and it's not just come together, have a beer, talk sports. These men's groups are allowing men to understand the dynamics of having a relationship with another human being that isn't based on, like you said, it's not based on sexual connection. It's just human intimacy. And what I'm seeing from these men when they come out of these men's groups is amazing, because they're understanding how to be one with their emotions, but not be their emotions. Like, they're feeling it, they're experiencing it, but they're not being that. Like, that's all they're being. And what it's also changing, which is also really for me fascinating, is understanding that when we're in relationships, we don't have to get everything we need from our spouse. That's been kind of cited, and or partner, however you roll. But that's been cited as one of the challenges when it comes to the decreasing the divorce rate, is that people are coming into marriages and expecting their partner, their spouse, their cohab to be their therapist, their friend, their confidant, their their chief financial officer, their friend. And it's okay to outsource some of those elements to different people in your life, so that you can get your needs met. And interestingly, about these men's group that I'm seeing now is that this push away from having an understanding of what masculinity is. And here's what I mean by that. It's based on an old system, really old system. It's also made up. And once we kind of reach that like it's all made up. So why don't you make up what's good for you? Because healthy masculinity for me may look like detrimental to somebody else who's like, oh, I don't want to do all that stuff. I don't want to, get into my car and get my hands dirty and pull out bolts and stuff like that. I don't want to do that. So I shouldn't be like, you're not a man if you don't know how to change your carburetor or your air filter. It's like, and then what am I getting out of that? I'll leave with one last thing that I've learned about judgment, and I've learned this through working with men and through my clinical training, is if you judge someone, you're basically saying that you're better than them. Right? And I had to realize I'm not better than anybody. Now I can hear you. I can hear you on the other side listening. Well, what about if you got 100 on a test and someone got 98? Aren't you technically better than them? I hear you.
Yeah.
But I don't look at it as I am the better person. I am better, and therefore I can judge. There's no, and I think what's happened to men is that judgment of wanting to reach that level of masculinity, and that's just not available to some men right now. Boys and men are going to college less. That's been on the decline for years. These jobs that typically were for men now are for everybody, as they should have been in the first place. And some people aren't. They're like, what do I do with this? This is a predominantly man job, masculine job. And this other person is doing it. We got to do better. And here's I'll say one last thing, and I know I'm trailing on. But here's a prediction I have. I think that what we're seeing with people who have different sexual orientations, gender identifications, part of the LGBTQI community, I think this is a precursor of what our future will be like.
Mm.
Here's what I mean. I already talked about super intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What happens when we have to recognize that this super intelligent AI is technically a person? We've got corporations that are already people, so don't think this is
Yeah,
far
but
fetched.
yes, right. No, I love where you're going. Yep.
So okay, now let's take it a step further. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
I decide to chip my brain. I've got a few implants, and now I have a completely cybernetic arm. Right? I'm technically
Mm-hmm.
a cyborg. Right?
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
not all human.
Yeah.
I don't fit that binary tool. And
Mm-hmm.
go even further. What if we're able to actually upload, and now my consciousness is living inside of a body? I'm some sort of
Mm-hmm.
hybrid, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here's what I'm saying all this to draw the conclusion. If these people are the precursor for our future to come, and we're hating them already and trying to
Mm-hmm.
demean
Mm-hmm.
them and put them down, what
Mm-hmm.
happens when those people that are different and
Mm-hmm.
that are marginalized are actually powerful and
Yeah.
they can fight back? Are you going to hate
Absolutely.
as much?
Yeah.
Are you going to hate
Yeah.
as much? I don't think so.
I was about to
I,
say,
I
right.
don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, again, love everything. And it's funny because I literally just finished a 10-week training for um to be able to host men's groups where, again, it's about creating this container for men to come together. And again, it's not talking about, sports. It's about like, how are we making space for each other's and emotions and like I said, processing um ways of being accountable to ourselves and to others, and like all this different stuff. Like, how are we creating these spaces to do some really important work? And I do see more of that happening, which is exciting because it is, again, without even getting into whatever fighting systems and but just like, again, just from a basic human perspective, the more that we have spaces for people to process the things that they are experiencing and to, in a healthy way, express those things and feel empowered to address any concerns that they have, like that creates better environments for everyone, right? You don't have people just
Yeah.
walking around with, just, again, feeling like the only way that I can uh, release this energy is through anger or through violence or through even just pettiness, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if that's all we have, then there's a very bad, scenario on the other end. Um, and then again, just even talking about this piece of, you know, what happens, in the future where these folks who, because, and a lot of stuff that we're seeing again in the political environment is because people are realizing, wait, I'm not going to be the, you know, the standard for what it means to be, even just, again, let's even talk about the US. I'm no longer going to be the standard for what it looks like to be an American, or, someone from the United States anymore. And I don't know what to do with that because I've spent all of my life being that. My father, my mother, all the generations before, like so now I don't know what to do with that. And I'm afraid. Going back to what I was saying before, right? One of the toughest thing for human psyche to deal with is this understand, like this uncertainty about their reality. Like, you're telling me that I can't deal with that. Like, I just need you to stick. You gave me a box when I was, you know what I mean? Like, you gave me this box. Let's stay in the box. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are we messing with the box, right? But the reality is that, you know, again, particularly once we go beyond the US into this sort of global perspective, all these ways of being, already exist in abundance. And so, um, and that is only, becoming more prevalent, particularly because people, not necessarily because, um, whatever rates of neurodivergence themselves are increasing, like that's a separate conversation. But if
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, definitively, people are being given the language to identify in that way and to be able to see themselves in that way. And so, again, for me, again, 2 years ago, just before you and I had our conversation, is when my life completely changed, where I was like, oh shoot, and definitively I've got people telling me all the time, like, there's like a whole different energy about you. And I'm like, yeah, like, I see and experience and love myself in a way that I've never had access to. And that has given me access to, a power and a sense of being and a peace that I've not had before. And so again, as that continues to happen for those who were marginalized before, that that's going to kick up some dust that a lot of people are going to have to, uh, either be part of cleaning or choke on. Like, you know what I mean? Like those are going to be the options. And so, like that's going to be the options. And so, yeah, man, I mean, this is all like super, super amazing. I really, I love these conversations. I'm going to ask one more question, which I think you've kind of alluded to, but I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to specifically speak to, which is, what are, one or two things you wish the world knew or built more capacity for?
I wish the world knew, like, just inherently, how infinitely powerful we are as some of the weakest beings on this planet. Like, I really wish we just, like, we kind of knew that. Like, oh no, we're not the strongest, we're not the biggest, but we worked in community together, and because we have, developed prefrontal cortex, which allows us advanced problem solving, and we've been able to make advanced tools, we've been able to conquer, in a sense, this world. And we're fragile, yet at the same time powerful, and that shows our infinite possibility. So I wish people knew that. What was the second part of the question? You said it.
So it was just like things that you wish people knew and that they built capacity for. So I mean,
and they built capacity for. I really wish we built the capacity for people to, basically. I wish people can build the capacity to be pissed off, irritated, frustrated, anger, slighted, getting joned on, whatever,
right.
I wish we had, and the reason why I say I wish we had the capacity for that is because I feel like we're so thin right now when it comes to my big mama used to say, "You're getting on my last nerve," which means that let me know that she has a low capacity for BS. And if I bring in BS, a chocleta or a slipper is flying across the
right.
the way, and I'm getting hit in the face.
The chancla is coming your way.
Right.
Yes, right.
So I wish we had more capacity to deal with that. And I think that also speaks to that we need systems to help people de-stress. People are struggling right now. And the things that we're pumping into their world isn't helping. It's at best making it worse. At best making it worse, and at worst, it's completely deteriorating us as people.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you. I mean, two things. One, sort of shameless plug. One, for those who may have not listened, a couple episodes I did talking about how anger gives us access to joy. Because I think that at the end of the day, like, we really need to have, we need to be able to dig into that, right? And we need to understand that from all perspectives to be able to really create the joy that we're seeking. And then I think as well, there's this opportunity to reflect on, again, what does it look like as a community to hold space for all these things, right? And understand that there are going to be times where, one, repair is needed. Two, where we just need to be able to somebody's going to misstep. Like, let's accept that. Like, there's going to be some sort of misstep. Somebody's not, that day is not going to have, all the nerves. Like, you literally are going to be on their last nerve that day. And that's not the end of the world, right? There has to be ways to balance that. And, the other thing that popped in my mind as it relates to that too is, like, there's a friend of mine, and I don't know if she'll be listening to this episode, but we've been having a conversation about an interaction that she had with someone where, again, there's this tension around how both of them have perceived a scenario. But the real, like, one of the things she and I talked about is like the real fumble in the scenario is the fact that this other person seems to be struggling with moving past this feeling of tension and not really getting curious before they get furious, right? Like, how do I say, okay, look, I didn't really like
Curious
that,
before you get
but like,
furious. Bars.
yes, there we go. So like, yeah, like that's a big thing, as I, hear you speak about that I just wanted to make sure that I'm reflecting back and affirming. So look, again, we could go on for days. There's like at least 5 more like major topics that we could tap into, but as we round out, can you remind us of any of the projects that you're working on, things that may be coming up, and how folks can stay connected and support you?
So Only Social is on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
post rarely there, but you could find more information about me at LinkedIn, David Hester Jr. And you can check out my website, MusingU, and my organization, Creating Access to Tech, as well as LifeGuides.com if you're looking to connect on a peer support level. Those are my projects. Again, I know I mentioned it at the top, but shout out to the union here in Seattle, just creating a space where creatives, and specifically creators who've been pushed out of the content game, have a space where they can come and create good content in good spaces. So I wanted to shout them out. Shout out to my guy Reef. And yeah, my biggest project that I'm working on now is the same project I've been working on since I was 5, just trying to be a better human.
Yeah, Ashe. Well, again, thank you so much, Dave. Like this is just the most amazing conversation. I will put all those links into the show notes. But yeah, thank you as always for showing up, man, and just bringing your full self. Like I love it all.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for joining me on another episode of I Must Be BUGN. I hope you felt seen, safe, and celebrated by what you heard today. Don't forget to visit my website, sheldongaysbugn.com, where you can catch all of my episodes, book me to speak, and check out my merch. Don't hesitate to hit me up on socials either. I'm eager to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your stories. Remember, this podcast is all about sharing humanized narratives about who we are and how we contribute to the beautiful and necessary diversity of humanity. This is our place to unmask and just be. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe. It helps our people find community. So until next time, stay up and enjoy who you were meant to be. Ashe.